Well, we were all asking for an update on the Bichette market, the Kyle Tucker market. Well, looks like we got both. Over the weekend, the Bichette info came out, and now we're at the point where we're hearing more about Kyle Tucker. Now, what is it? What can we take away from it, and where are the Blue Jays in all of this? A lot to talk about on today's episode of Locked On Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The wildcard round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel and the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and grab your profit boost pack every NFL game day. As always, I'm Brayden. He's Carter First. You can find us on the Twitters, our main one, at Locked On Jays. Also on our personals, at Brayden5Iwasco, at Carter First too. But a lot to get into on today's episode as we are going to discuss the new Kyle Tucker contract rumors that are out there, of course. We're going to get into the World Baseball Classic, some of the Toronto Blue Jays that are going to be playing in this tournament, as well as what has been happening around the league with a big trade that has come out that I don't necessarily know that has some people scratching their heads, but I think it's definitely interesting for the entire league. But Carter, let's kick things off here. Kyle Tucker, a few reports now have come out. One earlier from Will Salmon about the fact that it was a 3-year, $120 to $140 million deal. And then later on, it was reported that it was actually $50 million AAV. That didn't technically say a time span, but it did say a short-term deal. So I guess, Carter, what are you taking away from everything that came down today?
Busy day in the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes, but you like to see it after really not much movement whatsoever since our season ended in November. Where I'm at now is I think there's two clear categories of what's going on. The New York Mets, I think, kind of dropped the ball. Like, this is a lot of New York Mets numbers. You usually don't want your contract numbers going out to the media. This could be a ploy at this point. Maybe like it's someone from the Mets leaking it. It could be Kyle Tucker's agent using it as leverage. There's a bunch of different conspiracy theories going on in my head, but $50 million AAV, I don't think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to match that on a long-term or a short-term deal. The Los Angeles Dodgers, another team, as we know, already in on Kyle Tucker. They're also in the short AAV game or the short-term game, large AAV game. Are they going to be able to compete with that $50 million reported a year contract? We talked about it with the luxury tax. The Dodgers, if they sign Kyle Tucker for $50 million a year, that is going to hit them like a truck in taxes. So they can do it, but will they do it is a question. And then does Kyle Tucker want to sign a longer-term contract? I think the Toronto Blue Jays are clear front runners in that regard. It's been known that the Toronto Blue Jays are looking to add another face to the franchise for a longer-term deal. So it's really in Kyle Tucker's hands. We have to see which way he is leaning, but the Toronto Blue Jays are definitely really in this, and it is going to come down to the wire.
So I guess in all of this, it comes down to what does Kyle Tucker value more? Does he value a bigger sum paid out over 3 years and then the potential to go get another big contract? Or does he want to be locked down? Does he want to have that guaranteed money that we always talk so much about and why these players like it so much, right? I think, again, it's hard to sit here and say that he's going to go one way or going to go the others because they're two completely different offers. It's really, the Blue Jays are sitting here banking on the fact that they can pay a guy for so long, right? And be okay with giving him so much money and maybe eating a couple years towards the end, maybe where they aren't at their best. Whereas what's seeming like the Mets and the Dodgers and, whoever else that is possibly going to offer a short-term deal, they don't want to eat money later on. They want to just pay him a whole bunch of money right now and have him be great for 3 years, and then if he leaves, he leaves. So to me, this is just, it's an interesting situation, and why me and you were so, not pessimistic, I want to say realistic on this situation, that it wasn't going to be a Blue Jays guarantee that he was just there, because otherwise Kyle Tucker would have signed with the Toronto Blue Jays already. The deal would have been done. And if it was, I think I saw this online, somebody said it too. I think it was actually our buddy Cheap from Cheap Seats. If you haven't looked at him on TikTok, you can go look at him. if this was $50 million, because it's technically not stated as an exact amount of years that this contract was given for the $50 million, if this was a 7-year, $50 million deal, this deal would be done. Kyle Tucker would have had pen to paper already. So, obviously, he's weighing his options. What does he value more? And I guess, Carter, you can't get into a player's head. I can't get into a player's head. I think that me and you both know Kyle Tucker wanted that long-term deal originally. But does $50 million change that per year, right?
This is the first time that we've had a clearer picture on what the Kyle Tucker market is truly looking like. I've seen a few analysts throw around the word finalists, which is very good because it means we're getting near the end of this whole saga. That means other free agents will fly off the market. The Bichette market should follow, the Cody Bellinger. Seems like everything's being held up by Kyle Tucker. Whether the Toronto Blue Jays get Kyle Tucker or not, I think Major League Baseball fans will be happy that free agency is finally starting to kick off a little bit. Has been reported the Mets are looking for around a $50 million AAV contract. It is a short-term contract. That could mean 1 year, probably not 1 year. I think 2, 3, maybe 4 at the most. But I'd be safer to stick with that 2 to 3 year contract in terms of term. The Los Angeles Dodgers has been really reported throughout this entire offseason, and just it is known that the Dodgers are in win-now mode. You win 2 in a row. Clearly, you're in win-now mode. You're going to be in that mode again. But you have another 3 or 4 years that you probably have the ability to do that. Maybe you can extend it a little bit longer depending on your contracts, how they age, things like that. But you're really trying to win as many as you can in these next few seasons. So the Los Angeles Dodgers, another team that is rumored to be in that short-term range. But can they compete with $50 million AAV? With the luxury tax, the Los Angeles Dodgers have been above the luxury tax for consecutive years now. If they sign Kyle Tucker, it is going to cost them over $100 million if they are going to match that $50 million reported AAV from the Mets. So that kind of leaves the Toronto Blue Jays. And you look at these short-term contracts, and one thing I wanted to compare to is Alex Bregman. He just signed his contract at the age of 32 years old. It was a 5-year, $175 million contract. That's a $35 million AAV after coming off of a season where he played 1 year with the Red Sox, a $40 million AAV. If Kyle Tucker wants to cash in, this is a little bit of a riskier route, but if you get $50 million AAV for $150 over 3 seasons, that's a pretty good payday. I think every single player in Major League Baseball would take that. And then you still would have the ability to maybe sign that 5 or 6 year contract with another team if you continue to play good baseball, if you play good in your prime, if you produce in your prime, if you sign with the Mets, the Dodgers, or the Blue Jays, which is reported. Those are good baseball teams. Those are baseball teams that are trying to win. Those are baseball teams that are going to spend in the market. So you're going to think that you're going to surround yourself with some pretty good talent. You play 3 years there. I like the odds that Kyle Tucker is still a good baseball player 3 years down the line. But a lot of things can happen. There's injuries. There's dips in production. There's family-related stuff. There's things outside of baseball that definitely don't matter as much of like term contract winning, things like that, but definitely do come into the picture. If you just want to lock up generational wealth for your family, sign that huge contract. Won't be $50 million AAV with the Toronto Blue Jays, but you can be pretty certain that's going to be close to that $40 million AAV. It's probably around a $400 million contract based off everything that we have seen. It's a lot safer of a route to go. The Blue Jays are in championship mode. They are going to win now. They've spent the most money this offseason. You know what their intentions are, which is a good place for Kyle Tucker and his family to be in. So it's really up to him and what he values. You have the winning culture. I would say that the Mets have still a winning culture. They kind of pulled the Toronto Blue Jays in 2024. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here. These are 3 really good teams. You got 3 really good organizations to go to. Just really depends on what Kyle Tucker is valuing, not only at this point in his career, but at this point in his life as well.
Well, Carter, I mean, this is what's sort of leaving all fans, right, including me and you, left out, waiting, is the fact that it's not just a clear-cut number one. It's not just, hey, 2 teams battling. It's 3, 4, whatever you want to say. There's that many teams still involved at this point of the offseason. And I understand why fans are frustrated. Me and you are frustrated. I mean, we were just talking about it yesterday when we were sitting on the couch. It's the fact that this has felt like a very long offseason. And that's for the fact that you didn't get the Juan Soto signing in December that sort of kicked everything else off, and you could see where the pieces were going to fall. Instead, we're left just standing here waiting. And I think it's for good reason. Kyle Tucker has a big decision to make. Does he want to take that deal that sets him up for the rest of his career, something that he will never have to worry about again. He doesn't have to worry about going through free agency and picking another team or deciding to sign an extension. He could go the other way. Hey, give me my money now so I can get another offer later. And he may end up making more money in the long run that way. But that's a lot of betting on yourself. And not only, like you said, betting on yourself, but betting on your own health. And that's a big component in all of this. We know in professional sports, things can change on a dime. You could go from being a super good player, you have one bad injury, and that lingers with you the rest of your career. So, I think we're all just left waiting. And I hate to say it, but that's about the best we can do. We can sit here and we can chat about it all we want, but it seems like, we just got to wait for this guy to make a decision now. I do like that this did come out a little bit, though, because as Blue Jays fans, we're sitting here thinking we're in the driver's seat for everything, and that Kyle Tucker is just supposed to be a Toronto Blue Jay, when that's not the case. And I feel like this whole offseason, that's what was being reported, was that Kyle Tucker was pretty much a shoo-in to be a Toronto Blue Jay. And I think me and you talked about this a few times. We said, whoa. Pump the brakes. If the deal's not done, the deal's not done. There are other teams involved here, and that's what we're seeing now, but it's just taken a long time for this stuff to start coming out. So if I'm a Blue Jay, like we're Blue Jays fans right now, if I'm a fan that, is listening to this podcast, you're probably a little bit upset hearing this. But I think that this is what you should have expected all along. And that's why, Carter, we had the conversation however long ago about a plan B or a plan C in regards to Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to anybody. There is no plan B. There is no plan C for these guys. You miss out on Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette. You miss out on Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette. And that sucks. And we're going to have to sit here and deal with that and look at this season as what it would be without them. But we're not there yet. I don't want to make this all pessimistic because one of those guys could be a Toronto Blue Jay within the next week and a half. I still think it's going to be longer than that, but it's at least now we have a clearer picture.
Brought up the notion of having a plan B, having a plan C. How do you have a plan B and C at this point in the offseason when, the two guys that you've been in on, the two guys that not necessarily been promised, but the two guys that Toronto Blue Jays fans have expected to be signed, you wait until January. There is still other options available. We kind of had a weird free agency. It doesn't take this long most of the time. But how are you supposed to pivot from guys like Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette when it takes this long to sign them? And we talk about the three teams right now. There still could be a dark horse team. Like the Phillies could come out of nowhere. Somehow the Yankees might decide they want to spend. Maybe the Red Sox, who haven't literally done nothing in terms of free agency this offseason. They have made some trades, but no free agent signings. Maybe they come out of nowhere. But I think from what we've seen with how I want to use the word stubborn. I know, again, it's a tough word to use because these players are making a life-changing decision. If I was in their boat, I would want as much money as possible as well. But at this point, you kind of know where teams are at. You know where the market is. You know if it's just going to be a couple more million here, another year there, what ends up being. I feel like teams have made their pitches by this point of the offseason. I think Kyle Tucker knows what he's going to get from the Blue Jays. He knows what he's going to get from the Dodgers. He knows what he's going to get from the Mets. Yes, maybe you can negotiate a few extra million. I don't think in terms of term, these teams are going to be too willing to negotiate, but you can always get a little bit more money on top of the AAV, which you can't subject Kyle Tucker to any hate on that department. But we'll have to see how this develops. I've seen a few articles that have said it can be ended as early as this week. I honestly hope it does. I hope we can just kind of look at the Toronto Blue Jays roster. We can look at what this batting order is going to look like. You look at the pitching, you look at the bullpen. Yes, maybe there's a minor league signing, but I think you can say it's pretty much finalized. Where in terms of the offense, it'd be a lot easier to rank this team and rate exactly what it's going to look like in spring training and when opening day comes. Once they make this final sign, barring that they do make a final sign.
Yeah, Carter, to me, this just doesn't feel like a bidding war situation. This is a player decision situation. It's in regards to years or AAV.
This is testing front office patience, I think. It's a patience battle at this point.
It may be a patience battle. It's getting frustrating. And I'm getting frustrated because I want to sit here and start looking ahead to 2026. I'm sick of looking back at 2025 and the what can be, what won't be, what may be. I can't stand that. I want to be able to look at this roster and make my decision on, hey, how do I feel like this team is going to fare going into the next year? But we're so far into this free agency. Carter, last year we were having the conversation of, what is this team going to be like already? We were breaking down the roster, the lineup. And in this year, we're still talking about who they're going to sign, which is just insane to me. We might make it into close to February not knowing a complete roster. This is criminal. I mean, it is what it is. The good for Kyle Tucker, but I feel like it gets to a certain point where it's like, Jesus, boys, make a decision here. Like, if it's the front office, if it's the players, whoever it is, God, like, maybe we do need to go to the NHL style of free agency because this is frustrating.
But luckily, it's in the sports world, we're kind of on a generational run here. You got World Juniors, you got NFL football, the NHL's still on, Olympics coming up, the World Baseball Classic in March, spring training baseball. Then hopefully that takes us pretty close to opening day. So we're in a pretty good spot in the sports world, as much as it is frustrating to still see Kyle Tucker, the possibility that Bichette is not a Toronto Blue Jay, seemingly to increase in every day, making it a little bit more real. That's still going to be a tough day. If he does sign with another team, nothing is set in stone yet. Maybe somehow the Toronto Blue Jays end up with Bichette after all this craziness. What a world that would be. It's pretty tough to imagine Bichette in the Toronto Blue Jays jersey after what this offseason has put us through. But hey, I mean, we're going to be on board with that. We're going to have to see what the rest of this offseason has in store for us. Hopefully it does result in whether it is Kyle Tucker or Bichette. We need one of them. It's going to be so much easier to get even that much more excited about this team if they do add one of those two all-star players.
Yeah, Carter, and you brought up the World Baseball Classic. A couple guys have been announced to certain teams. Again, if you follow us on Twitter, @LockedOnJays, you would have seen a couple guys that we've made some posts about, and hopefully you guys were following along. But we'll get into all of that right after this short break. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You guys know we talk about FanDuel literally all the time because it is our premier place to place our bets. And the wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. And I have been hammering these. Let me tell you, I've been winning some, I've been losing some, but I have been winning a whole lot more with these. So I'm going to continue to do that. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Take advantage. I'm telling you, it's worth it. I just won like a $250 one. I just won an $80 one, I think, on the other game. So I've been having some success, even though I'm not so good at picking winners. But I like the player props, that's for sure. Again, check out FanDuel.com for these profit boosts. So, Carter, hopefully everybody was following along, like I said, on our Twitter account. Little surprise retweet or like from the boys today. USA Baseball gave us a like on the tweet when they announced that Ernie Clement will be playing for Team USA. I put it out there, and they shot us over a like, so shout out you. Well, God, I don't really like doing this, but listen, I got nothing against USA Baseball. We'll say that. So shout out to them for giving us a like. We also announced that Alejandro Kirk will be joining Team Mexico. Obviously, Vladdy will be playing. Bichette will be playing for Brazil. So shout out all of those guys, even though Bichette technically right now is not a Toronto Blue Jay. Hopefully in the future he is, and we can continue saying that. But those, Carter, are the four guys right now that have been named to play for these rosters. And I think really, after you look at this playoffs, there aren't a couple guys that could be better playing for these teams, right?
Yeah, you got to love that Bichette is still in our hearts as a Toronto Blue Jay. Before I give my breakdown there, we were talking about all the sports going on. Just wanted to bring up the Everydayer Club one more time. We're big NHL guys, NFL guys, MLB. We like sports in general. I'm sure you guys do as well. Ton of different channels covering a ton of different sports. We encourage you guys to head over there to get all of your other sports needs covered. But the Ernie Clement one, I'm always going to love the most. I mean, what a playoff run. If he doesn't have that playoff run, he's not asked to be on this baseball team. In what capacity is he going to be on the team? Probably just as a defensive replacement. But I think Ernie Clement himself would tell you that he absolutely loves that role. Team USA is disgusting. I know it isn't a necessarily confirmed roster yet, but they're really good. The States are really good. The Dominican Republic, another team that's really good. Unfortunately for Canadians, Team Canada is okay at best. There is some nice news, like Jameson Taillon this year is pitching. Freddie Freeman not playing on Team Canada is always going to be a shot in the heart. I think Jordan Romano's not playing, whether that's performance-based or because maybe he just needs a little bit of a break from baseball is to be said. But congratulations to Ernie Clement, Alejandro Kirk. They're going to love having that guy behind the dish. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I mean, that's a shoo-in, obviously. And if Bichette's healthy, you got to assume that Bichette is going to be on the team as well in some regard. I was wondering if Jose Berrios, it was reported before the playoff run that he might pitch for Puerto Rico. Not sure if that's going to happen. Again, is that performance-based? I think Blue Jays fans specifically would love to see him out there, would love to see him playing against some of the best in the world, just to see kind of where he's at. I think you agree with this as well, that Jose Berrios at minimum is going to be serviceable. I think he will be better than last year. That is a debate for a different day, though. But yeah, it's always fun to see just talent on the world stage, and we're lucky enough to see that in multiple different sports, multiple different events, including the Olympics, while I'm talking about this as well.
Yeah, Carter, and we're going to be covering when the World Baseball Classic comes around. We'll be having episodes on it and talking about how some of the players have done. I also wanted to throw this in there. George Springer was invited to play for Puerto Rico as well, but decided ultimately not to play. And I think that's a great thing for George Springer. I think the invitation was fantastic, but I think a guy that wants to be ready for the regular season, he wants to come in healthy, wants to continue the season he had in 2025, I think ultimately had to make that decision, and I think it was a good one. As much as I would love to see George Springer play, and the more Blue Jays on these teams, the better, but, some guys have to take in regards to that they're getting up there in age, right? And at some point, they have to say, hey, what's more important to me right now is the team that I play on in the MLB, or is it the team that I'm going to go and play for my country? And, at some point they have to make that call. And George Springer did. And he said, no, thanks. I think he cited it as an injury, even though I don't necessarily know how much I take away from that. I think it just might be hey, I want to take a little bit of a break from baseball until we get back into everything full swing. So, you know what? Good for George. I'm happy that he got the invite, because what an amazing season in 2025 he had.
Uncas earn the rest. That's how I'll put it. The guy has deserved every break that he wants from baseball. Hopefully he can replicate, honestly, 70% of what he found in that 2025 season. You'd love to see George Springer compete. That's the issue, though, is George Springer is always going to compete. What's more important to him, the Blue Jays season, the World Baseball Classic? Tough to compare, but you would hope that it is the Toronto Blue Jays, as we do have a Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Probably not worth the risk with George Springer's age. Not saying that he's that old, but with the age, with the previous injury history, you probably don't want that to be a risk from George Springer. Give him the extra rest. Let him let him participate in spring training as he regularly would. So I think that is a good decision by George Springer as well. One thing that was brought up as well, one thing we saw in the media, I didn't have a chance to cover this last week, but we have some numbers from some new players on the Toronto Blue Jays that have been released. Cody Ponce will wear number 37. That was last worn by Stuart Burrowa in 2024. This is from MLB Jersey Numbers on Twitter. And then Tyler Rogers will wear number 71. Last worn by TJ Zook in 2019. So hopefully we'll have a little bit better of a career there with Tyler Rogers. Hopefully he'll produce just a little bit better with the Toronto Blue Jays than we did get from TJ Zook. But just a little bit of information on there as well. I'm not a big jersey number guy. Like I don't really care what you have on unless you have like a ridiculous number, like you have a 98, like something just that doesn't
Bedard's
really.
Out there.
Oh yeah, that was a Connor Bedard shout out actually. Yeah, for hockey I like it, but for baseball, maybe stick to something a little bit more basic. But I know you're a big number guy. How do you feel about those two? Are they brand approved? It's not 5, I guess, but
yeah. To be honest, I don't care. It's always been a thing for me. Like hockey, I always wore 5. My mom wore 5. My grandpa wore 5. Or my papa, and my dad wore 12. My brother wears 12, and then we sort of pass it down. Our cousins now wear 5 and 12. It's sort of become a family thing. So it's more of an us thing it is than I actually care about like which players wear what numbers. I think it's one of those little superstitions, and for me, I don't even count it as a superstition. It's more of like a I don't know, just I don't even want to say it's a mental thing. Because if I wear another number, it's not like I'm playing better or worse. It's just I like to wear the number. It's whatever. Who cares? I don't think
Tyler Rogers, he's wearing 71 because he's going to pitch 71 innings for the Toronto Blue Jays, and Cody Ponce is going to be a Blue Jay until he's 37 because he's going to have such a luxurious career in the Toronto Blue Jay blue.
Sure. Yeah. However you want to spin this, I'm okay with that. A lot more to get into. We want to talk about stuff going on around the league as well. A couple big trades, one in particular that I find super interesting because, man, what a career. So we'll talk about that when we return after this break. All right, Carter, let's start with the big news on the block, and that is the Cardinals trading Nolan Arenado to the D-backs. Interesting. They're eating, I believe, $31 million of that deal. Listen, D-backs making moves. You know what? Hey, if you're not going to trade your guy, go out and make a move. Maybe you bring in somebody that can help it out. How do you feel about this one, Carter?
I don't love it. I think you get worse. You know, you had Eugenio Suarez, now you get Nolan Arenado.
Sure,
there's a reason that you're trading him away. Like, he makes $5 million and $6 million over the next 2 years. Minimal risk, but we clearly see Nolan Arenado's best days behind him. Like, if you're the D-backs are in a weird spot for me. You sold at this last deadline. Maybe this is like a restructured move. It kind of feels like the 2023 offseason for the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, the Blue Jays were a better team than the D-backs were this last season. But just making weird moves in that offseason, going into the 2024 season, I feel like if I'm a Diamondbacks fan, based off what they've done, it's tough for me to get excited about that team making a serious playoff run, even making the playoffs in 2026.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think this is an absolute recovery move from not being able to keep your guy. That's what this is, right? You don't have the guy that you had to, say goodbye to, and now you bring in Nolan Arenado as a replacement piece, brings in fans.
They can still bring back Suarez. He's still there. He's available, believe it or not.
Well, not now.
Why not have a little platoon there at third base, the good defender and then the not-so-good defender?
Yeah, I mean, sure, but this was a move that I feel like was in regards to them saying, hey, see you later, we're out.
Yeah, you probably don't trade for Arenado if you want him as a platoon piece, unfortunately.
No. I can't see Nolan Arenado coming to this team and be like, no, you play third. That's fine with me, even though I was one of the best third basemen.
No, he's going to be like Miggy in his last year with the Tigers.
Yeah,
he's going to have that type of role.
Yeah, I don't want to hear that. That was horrendous. I love Miggy, but
a little farewell tour? Like, you can't hate that.
I hate the farewell tours. Retire on a good note. End it there. Listen, it was painful watching Josh Donaldson play at the end of his career, even though he was my all-time favorite player. It gets to a point where it's like, boys, hang him up. You know what I mean? You're done. You're just hurting your career in totality more than you're helping it. But Carter, I'll move on to the next one. I won't sit here and talk about my favorite player of all time. That's fine. The Marlins trade Weathers to the Yankees. They get 4 prospects in return. Interesting move here. One that, again, like, where you talk about these moves that you don't really see coming or think about. Well, here's one for you. How do you think about this one, Carter?
It's like the 14th ranked Yankees prospect, the 15th, the 23rd, and then a guy that's not ranked. Like, I don't care about the prospects. Ryan Weathers has a lively arm. Like, he's a left-handed starter that hasn't really thrown a lot of innings, so it's a wild card. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I see the potential here. Like, I'm not really freaking out over Ryan Weathers being on the Yankees, but as a depth starter, you got to see what's going to go on with Garrett Cole. You still have Max Fried. You still have Carlos Rodon, Will Warren, Luis Gil. Like, you still have options. So you can never have too much pitching. So I don't necessarily hate the move, but it's not one that I'm like, oh, we got to watch out for the Yankees now because this happened.
No, absolutely. I mean that's just what you get. And Carter, with all of this going on throughout the league, I think a lot of the storylines. I want to say this week, it was a lot around the Bo Bichette, a lot around the Kyle Tucker, and some of these things get missed. And that's why we're doing this Around the League segment a little bit, of just trying to keep you guys informed on what's going on with other teams, some guys moving. And we're not going to cover everything. I mean, we're not going to go down the list and say that, hey, this prospect got moved to this team because, who cares? You guys may not see those guys. But Carter, any more that has been happening around the league this past week?
Well, we haven't talked about the third Jimenez. We talked about
That's
Leo
right.
Jimenez. We talked about Andres Jimenez. What about Eloy Jimenez?
Sure.
Making a minor league signing with the Toronto Blue Jays. Was with the Toronto Blue Jays last year near the end of the year. If you guys didn't know that, I don't blame you because he made zero impact, obviously, on the Toronto Blue Jays. Didn't make a lot of noise in AAA either, but they have a reunion. It's always nice to see like a player that you know of back in the past had his best year when he was, I believe, 22 years old. Really hasn't captured any of that fire since 2022, but hey, we got to see. Maybe he can make some noise and try to make a roster that's going to be pretty tough to crack, even right now, if they don't sign another player. So best of luck to him cracking this roster. But if you do see Jimenez, we have to get Leo up as well. I think if you're going to get Eloy, you got to get the other one. Let's just have 3 Jimenezes on the team. Make it really confusing for Buck Martinez.
Oh, God, what a disaster that would be. I love Buck, but goodness gracious.
It's all the same last name. It's just figuring out which one it would be the tough one.
That you could make a drinking game out of that, I think.
If you want to lose by the 3rd inning, maybe.
Yeah. Also, Carter, an interesting one here. I want to get your take on this. The Royals are moving in their fences at their ballpark. So, interesting there. You don't hear that too much, right? You hear about reconstruction, but just the fact that they're strictly going after this as to move in the fences. And so maybe they looked at the analytics, maybe they looked at the data, and to see, hey, how can this help our team? How could this hurt our team? An interesting move, I think.
Yeah, just more Vladdy home runs.
Sure.
Yeah, perfect for Vladdy. But I like to see it. I usually like when they make the stadium margins more favorable for the hitters, believe it or not. I like when teams score runs. I like offense along with a lot of other MLB fans. I do like the good pitching duel from time to time, but that's all you're getting. I can see how baseball gets slightly boring, especially if you're not watching the Toronto Blue Jays. If you're watching a random game of baseball and it's two guys maybe you don't necessarily know and you're watching the worst at-bats of all time. Not saying that's the Kansas City Royals lineup, but I mean, if it's not Bobby Witt, who is it? Okay, a little bit of a ricochet shot there. But I guess you can do that when you made the World Series as a Toronto Blue Jays fan. I'll try to not let my ego get too crazy. But usually when you have margins like that, I'm assuming it's 10 feet. I don't have exactly how they switch those dimensions. Or it's probably a little bit more than 10 feet, obviously. But I like to see those little adjustments just to configure the ballpark if they don't think they're getting enough offense or maybe the offense is coming a little bit too easy.
Well, Carter, you said 10 feet and you're right on the money. It's just under 10 feet they're moving them in. So there you go.
Go with your intuition all the time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it was a good guess. I'll give you that.
Just read the article right before I said you asked me that.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But imagine, I should start doing that. We should start just fabricating these. Maybe people think we do that, but we've been pretty good at guessing for the most part. With a lot of these segments.
A while back? I think I had a good guess on, and then
it might have been a Dylan Cease thing. I think it might have been an ERA. I can't remember. I ask you these questions fairly often. Usually, I do it though when it's like I'm hoping to throw you off. It shouldn't be something that is too easy.
Yeah. You try to get me on them. That's what it is. Anyway,
I try to set you up for failure on this podcast.
What else is all about? New? It's always setting me up for failure. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. We won't keep you any longer. We got more coming. New episode Friday. We'll be bringing you guys some
live stream for Kyle Tucker coming up.
That would be sweet. I would love that.
I'm ready for it.
If not, if there's nothing there, we may talk about Okamoto finally. I know those of you who weren't listening on the YouTube and usually tune in the audio, we're sorry. We were away on vacation. We try to get you guys everything, both, but it was very difficult. The Wi-Fi was horrendous. So we'll try to talk about Okamoto a little bit more again, do a little bit more of a deep dive. But if something comes out and something happens, we might pivot again. So again, this is Okamoto we can talk about whenever. That's the good thing. He's a Toronto Blue Jay. As always, thank you guys for watching. But Carter, I know you have one more thing to bring up. So I'll throw it over to you, I guess, before we cap off the episode.
And that one thing is the Everydayer Club. Like you guys, we like a bunch of different sports, not just Major League Baseball. But hey, you'll find us on there as well. Bunch of new bonus content from a bunch of different networks. We appreciate it if you guys did check it out. A lot of good stuff on there. Me and Brayden check it out all the time to catch up on other leagues that we maybe don't have as much time for traditionally. Right now we have a little bit more time because we're in the off season, but we encourage you guys, especially NFL playoffs, lots of cool stuff going on over there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll hopefully be back with you guys before Friday with a huge live stream coming out, but if not, we'll be back with you guys on Friday.